So once again, as a male advocate channel, I have to cover the highlights of the big events that occur in men's life, especially incidences where men have to protect themselves against forces that are not in their favor. And one of the biggest breaking news right now, and I'm sure some of you have probably seen it on other channels, but bear with me because I'm going to expand on this, is the fact that the criminal case in the UK has been dropped against Andrew Tate. So after what, 4 or 5 years of being accused and of course convicted in the public's eye, the case was dismissed due to the lack of evidence. But I want to cover this because there is something interesting that we have to understand as men. And this is why I need to highlight this problem. Okay? Let's listen to Andrew Tate on the Piers Morgan Show.
Social influencer Andrew Tate will face no criminal charges over allegations made by multiple women who are suing him in a UK High Court civil case. 4 women have accused Tate of sexual violence in 2015. The Crown Prosecution Service said today that the legal test to bring criminal charges had not been met in that case specifically. Well, Andrew Tate joins me now to discuss this. Andrew Tate, welcome back to Uncensored. Just to be clear, so for those who have not been following the multiple cases that you've been involved with, tell me what it is that you've been addressed with today in relation to these specific charges.
Yeah, for anyone who's not been following, I can make it very simple. I became the most Googled man in the world, and I was saying things they didn't like, and all of a sudden, every single country I'd ever stepped foot in started attacking me with all these strange legal cases from decades ago. And the process is the punishment. You and I have been speaking for a long time. We're old friends. And every time we speak, there seems to be some new case against me, and you quite, rightly say, we'll wait to see what happens in court. And here we are 4 or 5 years later, and they all fall by the wayside. So every single member of parliament, Vice News, BBC, every single person who said they've spoken to my victims has spoken to one of these girls. And the CPS has just said that these girls don't even have enough evidence to allow me to be charged, proving that they were lying all along. We know that people lie, both men and women, especially where there's a financial incentive. So this is just one step closer to my complete exoneration, sir.
OK, but as I understand it, and correct me if your understanding is different to this, as I understand it, this is one case involving 4 women who are concurrently running a High Court civil case against you. So they will have their case in a civil case, but it won't be criminal now. But that doesn't impact the other constabulary, which brought 21 charges against you and your brother Tristan earlier this year, right? That's still ongoing and still separate to this.
I just want to pause it here for a second. Please hit that like button because I'm going to get into some deep discussions today. Of course, book a session if you ever need any help from me, if you need any mentoring or if you need any advice from an older man, I'm here for you, my friends. Of course, subscribe. Now, my wife and her friend, who, if you guys have been watching on a daily basis, her friend has been visiting for the last 10 days. Well, she's leaving today, by the way. They were watching this as I was watching this breaking news. And they both do not. They freaking despise Andrew Tate. And I said to my wife, you see what I'm talking about, babes? They don't have any evidence on him. There's obviously something here that is wrong where this man is being accused of so many charges and they're constantly being thrown out. He's just arrogant. He's an arrogant bastard. Both her and her friends are green. Both of these guys are British. Andrew Tate obviously grew up in the UK, right? So over there, the woman and the feminist push has literally poisoned the woman against him, right? The general public. So a lot of them just find him despicable. But for what reasons? It's all about how arrogant he is. That's all. I just don't like how arrogant he is. I said, but do you realize that you didn't even sympathize with the guy for being under investigation and in prison, and they just dropped the case in the UK against him? But I just don't like him. In other words, they have no freaking concept of the man being in prison and having the worst of the worst possible things done against him. They don't care. They just don't like him. That's all that matters. This is the mind of a female. And I'm watching these 2 women having this freaking back and forth with me on this idea that they just don't like him. Ignoring all of the facts. ignoring the fact that the man has been under serious investigation, some of the most serious crimes ever. Then I had to bring it back personal. I said, imagine if that had happened to me. Just a silence in the room. Imagine if that had happened to your husband. Well, you wouldn't put yourself in that position. I said, I wouldn't have to. It doesn't matter. What position was he in? You don't know that. You don't know what position he's been in. You don't even know if he had sex with any of these women. The only way to fully protect yourself is literally not be in any space alone with any woman. That's the only way you can properly protect yourself. If you are seriously influential, understand this, gentlemen. When you have become so freaking powerful that you can influence politics. Andrew Tate has hundreds of millions of followers, okay, from around the world. He gets hundreds of millions of views. He's well Googled. He's not the most Googled. That's Donald Trump. But he is very high up there on Google list. Out of the 8 billion people, it is pretty high. When you have that much power and influence over the masses, you become a target. It's not rocket science. When you become more powerful and get more views than CNN, BBC, MSNBC, and all these other channels combined per month, that is too much power in the hands of one man. Look at Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk influenced the young voters and got Trump elected. Look what happened to him. Like Andrew Tate said, you either buy him out, influence him to come on their side, or to shut him up, or ultimately delete. There is a system in place that literally works against powerful men. Not powerful women, powerful men. And the first thing that they're going to accuse you of, which will destroy your reputation, the only thing and the fastest thing to do is to just accuse you of rape. That's it. P. Diddy. Look at all of the big celebrities. Every single one of them came down, got pulled down for the same thing. Women out here throwing punani free all over the freaking place, everywhere. Club Shay Shay got pulled down. Every freaking thing is just being accused of rape. Yet a lot of these women that are the victims are the ones that got the OnlyFans pages and the thirst traps on Instagram and all of these other things. And of course, throwing the punani out there freely. But apparently, there's a guy who's over 6 feet tall and got millions of dollars. Apparently, he can't get any punani and he has to grape them.
That's correct. So these 4 girls, they did a crowdfund and they begged the world for money. And they spoke to loads of MPs and Vice News, etc. And it turns out they have no evidence at all. They begged the world for money, and now they're suing me for money. They're desperate for money. And then they went to the police, and the police said they have no evidence. So that's all gone. The reason that the case against me here with these 4 girls was thrown out is because I know who the 4 girls are. So I simply just sent the text messages. Remember, I've been investigated. I haven't resisted any investigations. I'm one of the most investigated men on the planet. I'm more innocent than probably everyone else in that studio because I've been investigated head to toe. I have cooperated with the police. I provided proof. I provided text message conversations that these girls are lying, and the case was thrown out. The other case you're describing with the 21 charges from forever ago, the CPS won't tell me who the girls are because they know if they tell me who the girls are, then I will prove that the girls are lying before they can charge, remand, drag me through a trial. So their intention is to not tell me who they are, which is incredible to me, that they're saying you're charged and you need to go to jail. We want to remand you. Here's an extradition warrant, but we won't tell you who the people are. So I can't possibly defend myself because that's a setup. That's a matrix attack. But once I find out who they are, that case will once again be dismissed, just like this one was.
Okay.
And
no, I'm going to make the point that I just want to be clear to viewers who are trying to follow all this because it's complicated.
Yeah.
That there
it's
is
complicated. And I hate to interrupt you, sir, because I want you to talk. The only reason it's complicated is because they're trying very hard to drag up imaginary cases from the sky and they keep collapsing. It'd be very simple if I'd done something wrong.
Well, it is
if you do something wrong, you go to jail.
No, but I think it's important to use the correct language about what has happened here. It is a significant development. Clearly, the case that was brought against you by Hertfordshire Police involving these 4 women, they have said they couldn't find evidence that met the bar for a criminal prosecution against you. It doesn't mean they can't continue these 4 women to continue the civil case against you, and it has no bearing as we sit here on the separate case brought against you by Bedfordshire Police, which the CPS announced separately in May, where it authorised 21 charges against you and Tristan, which included 10 against you relating to 3 alleged victims, including rape, actual bodily harm, human trafficking and controlling prostitution for gain. Tristan faces 11 charges connected to 1 alleged victim, including rape, actual bodily harm and human trafficking. So that is ongoing. Nothing that's happened today has any bearing on that prosecution by Bedfordshire Police. That's correct.
That's correct. And the reason that's ongoing, unlike the other one from Hertfordshire Police, is because they won't tell me who these victims are. And they won't because they know I'll get it thrown out in a week. I'll just say, well, here's the text messages proving they're lying. That's the end of the case, just like happened with the Bedfordshire one. So, correct. These girls can still sue me civilly. I can sue you civilly for having a terrible shirt, sir. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, they're desperate for money. I'm a very famous, very rich, very handsome, very charismatic, very well-known, very tall, very sexy individual. And lots of people want my money. And
see, when he said all this, right? This is where my wife and her friend just went, oh, that's what I'm talking about right there. They ignored all of the other stuff. And all they did was focus on when Andrew does his bit. This is what makes him freaking popular. He's bombastic. He's huge. If I was to do that shit, I'll probably be a lot further ahead with my subscriber count as well. I'll probably lose a lot, but more than likely I'll gain a lot of younger men who actually love the fact that, hey, this is a man's man and he's not afraid to say who the fuck he is, right? So all I'm saying is that women tend to get very emotional on how he speaks, ignoring all the facts and the unbelievable amount of unfairness that has been bestowed on this guy. I said to my wife, imagine if I was accused for the last 4 years of a heinous crime such as rape, and I didn't know who my accusers were. Imagine how I would feel. You think you would be sticking around for 4 years standing by my side? Of course, she said, of course I would. I said, really? But the point I'm trying to get across to you guys is the only reason Andrew Tate is still freaking out of jail and still surviving is because he's self-employed. He doesn't rely on institutions or regular customers to fund his online university. And of course, he's a fighter. He's not going to freaking give up. He's not going to relent and freaking make these people take advantage of him because that would destroy his brand. You fight to the freaking end. The only time you go down is when you're freaking knocked out. That's who this man is. That's the kind of man you need to be. So back to the one simple point. This idea that women get so emotional about a person as opposed to seeing how bad they're being treated blows my mind. And I hate to see it, even looking at it through the lens of my wife and her friend. And these are 2 reasonable women. I should probably get upset that I mentioned that, by the way.
that's fine. They're going to lose in civil case too, because they know they've done nothing wrong. And the CPS has already said I've done nothing wrong twice now. So it is what it is. It's just, it's quite interesting, Piers. If I was truly guilty of crimes, imagine how frustrating it would be to watch me for 4 years never go to jail. I mean, it's obvious to the whole world now that the process is the punishment for me, that I've never done anything wrong. Everyone knows I've done nothing wrong. The whole purpose of this is just to drag me to court, slander me in the media, make me spend money on lawyers, tie me up in litigation, restrict my movements. And that's all they're trying to do. The process itself is the punishment. They know I've done nothing wrong from the beginning. And you have sons too. And I like to believe that if your son was accused by all these different states from all around the world of all these heinous acts for 4 years, and he had to suffer jail and house arrest and lose all his money and have his name slandered 4 years later when all the cases started falling by the wayside because the Los Angeles case is also fallen apart and collapsed. You yourself as a father would be standing there saying, this is incredible. This is insane that we have an innocent man here who's just endlessly attacked.
Well, look, as I've said to you repeatedly, I don't know whether you're guilty or not. I follow the process. I'm a journalist. I don't look upon it as a father or someone that knows you or any of these things. To me, the fair and proper way is called due process. And my only concern with you is, have you been afforded due process? What is interesting to me is the length of time this is all taking. That doesn't seem to me to be normal. You do hear stories like it, but it seems to me out of the norm, and is certainly significant today that the criminal prosecution against you by one of these two British police constabularies has now been dropped, leaving a civil case there. That is clearly not an irrelevant fact as you and I debate this whole scenario surrounding you. But my question with the Bedfordshire police, from a legal perspective, are they obliged to tell you who the accusers are?
Well, that's what's so interesting. So you made a fantastic point there about this taking so long. The reason it's taking so long is because these cases are imaginary and they're stretching to the very, very limits of the law to try and pin something on my name. If I had done something wrong, it wouldn't be taking so long. So it's pretty obvious to anyone with a brain now that this is all a setup from the state. As for Bedfordshire, they are legally obliged to tell me who the victims are, the supposed alleged victims, but they only have to do that once I have been remanded. And if I go to the UK, I'll be remanded after this extradition warrant is executed. But that can't be executed currently because the Romanian state has a case against me for tax evasion, which will take at least 10 to 11 years. So this is something that's going to take 10 or 11 more years to eventually be satisfied. It's pretty ridiculous all in all. The whole thing is asinine, and I've done nothing wrong.
Listen, I'm going to put a link to this video. You guys can go and watch the rest of it. I want to fast forward to the latter part of this interview where he had two women on. And I want you to listen to these women.
Tamara Gill, host of Triggered, along with historian and commentator Tessa Dunlop. So Tessa, welcome back. It's complicated, Andrew Tate, because I can't quite get my head around why we have to go through year after year after year of his name and his brother's name and all these lurid allegations, and nothing ever seems to come to the point of a criminal conviction. And in fact, today we hear the news that a whole slew of charges against them have now been dropped from one of the two British police forces taking action against them. What is your view?
My view is I've never heard you give so much space to an individual on your Uncensored programme. Oh, to speak in such an unfettered fashion and not be interrupted. But more specifically...
hang on. Just to be clear, I interviewed him only literally like 10 days ago, and we got into a slanging match about various things, including what I think are his pretty odious views about women's place in society. But he's entitled to have those views, right? But the question for me is... Is he a criminal?
Because Andrew Tate platforming himself there,
it's different.
quickly, 2 secs. Andrew platforming himself there as a victim. It is well known that it might not be well known, but it should be well known. In 2024, only 3% of the rape cases reported to the British police resulted in a charge, let alone a conviction.
Well, what does that have to do with him?
No, because a lot of what he's being charged for, sex with a minor, sex trafficking, etc., involve the two key witnesses being the accused and the accuser. And it is very, very hard to bring the bar high enough for a criminal case, which incidentally is proof beyond reasonable doubt. You'll remember Prince Andrew and the Virginia Giuffre case was a civil case. In a civil case, it's balance of probabilities. Are you suggesting to me here that we think, the majority of the British public think that Prince Andrew, for example, is entirely innocent simply because it didn't reach the bar of a criminal case?
All we know about Prince Andrew is that it never got...
You realize, stay focused, gentlemen. He asked her about Andrew Tate. It was a very reasonable, straightforward question. Her response was the percentage of women who actually do get any due process, 3%, as she claims, in court when it comes to rape charges. Then all of a sudden, we're now on to Prince Andrew, not Andrew Tate. Nothing here is answering the real question. The subject is Andrew Tate. Listen to this woman go into this emotional rant, not addressing any of the issues at all. Just listen. And I'm just trying to get you to understand this is what I'm dealing with listening to my two women in this scenario. It's the same thing listening to this woman. It's listen to the visceral and the hate coming from this woman's lips.
What we know about Prince Andrew is that it never got tested in a court of law, in a civil court of law, because at the last minute he gave Virginia Giuffre a reported $11-12 million to make that case go away with no admission of liability. So again, as a journalist, I just don't think it's helpful for people to take an extreme view about these things either way.
I agree with you.
We don't actually know for a fact what Andrew's culpability is in relation to any of the accusers.
He makes out he's this big victim.
No, I'm talking about Prince. Sorry, just to be clear, I was talking about Prince Andrew. Right. We can all have our view of what he did and how he paid this girl loads of money and the tragedy that unfurled when she.
The key there is it's a civil case.
No, I understand.
Most of these cases are civil.
I understand,
because of that
but I'm making the point. We don't know about his guilt, Prince Andrew. He's resolutely and consistently denied any wrongdoing. All we do know, and people can make their own minds up about what they feel about that, is that he gave her millions of dollars to make that case go away. Having said...
The shitty part about paying off an accuser, in the eyes of the public, it looks like an admission of guilt where I'm trying to cover my track. I don't think I could win in court. But that's usually never the case. 99% of the time, most of these high-powered individuals don't want their freakiness to be public knowledge. Look at P. Diddy. Well, you guys heard some freaky shit. Freaky ass, deep insider freaky shit that no man wants out on the street. Another man pounding your woman with a bigger D. How much lower can a man sink? Prince Andrew or Shannon Sharp don't want that information out there. These guys had to pay big money to try to keep this stuff out of the public eye. They don't want their personal affairs out there because that's more embarrassing. I mean, poor Shannon, he already had a lot of information out there. It's not nice to know that, a man has a woman between his legs and bottom of his feet are his bottom of his feet are facing the ceiling. That's not something that we want to hear of anyone, especially a prince. So, of course, he had to pay her off. But all I'm trying to point out to you, gentlemen, is the way that this woman is talking about Andrew Tate and the way men should not be given due process. That's the scary part.
On Andrew Tate, he's faced this slew of allegations. They're all extremely serious, right? Everyone has probably got a view about Andrew Tate, which skews what they think of him before they even get into these kind of things. He's a very abrasive, bombastic, confrontational character.
And has a voice. None of those alleged, let's call them victims, have a voice. None of them have a platform on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show. And the way in which he makes out it's something against him that the women are anonymous, it's a well-known fact that if you are accused of being a rapist and if you accuse somebody of being a rapist, the victim comes off much worse, which is why female victims or those accusing men of raping are granted anonymity. It's not him singled out.
Tessa, I don't disagree with you, right?
And it's so triggering to watch him spew this crap, Piers. It's crap.
No, it may be triggering to you.
It is triggering.
But that doesn't mean to say
a magical creature who's a woman.
It doesn't mean to say that the right way to interview him is to convict him before he's been convicted.
No, I'm not convicting
That's really what you want me to do.
No, but do
you want me to scream at Andrew Tate and say you are a sex abuser?
I question you platforming
But actually, I prefer not to do that.
I question you platforming him.
Why?
Because
I question you platforming him. In other words, he needs to be shut down. The mainstream media is allowed to drag him through the courts, but he should not have a voice. You understand how insidious this sort of thinking is? The mainstream media, every single freaking channel around the world can have his name dragged through the courts. This man on Dubai TV showed him in handcuffs being dragged off to Romanian jail. Okay? Every single TV channel around the world carried this man being placed in prison. But he's not allowed to have a say. He's not allowed to defend himself. And it wasn't as if he was convicted. Think about that, gentlemen. That's the world we're living in.
I think the balance of probability is, and by the way, Romania is a country I know very well.
Well, I know.
I wonder why Andrew Tate chose to go and establish his business emporium in Romania.
Well, explain your connection with Romania.
Oh, I've done a PhD on the history. I work over there a lot. I'm married to a Romanian. I know the country inside out. He thought he was on a buy there, an easy wicket. And guess what? He came unstuck. And yes, one of the cases has been sent back. It's under investigation for procedural errors. But a second, much broader case means he's trapped in Romania. Good. That's thanks to Romania's progress. I'm sorry, good. Good because I think it stinks.
Tessa.
Good. He's not convicted, but good. He's trapped in Romania because she don't like him. Holy Christ. This is scary. This is freaking scary. Imagine if we did this to women. Ooh.
Fine. Good, because you hate him. That's
no, I
fine.
don't hate him. I don't.
It sounds like
hate
you do.
him. No, I don't.
Which
hate
you're
him,
perfectly
but
entitled to.
I don't hate him, but I just think actually there's clearly that whether it's.
Be careful what you say.
Okay, let's just remember
facts.
what he's under investigation for.
Yes.
Sex with a minor.
Yeah.
Money laundering. Trafficking. It may well be that he's untouchable, but I'm very glad that Romania's making sure due process.
No, it may well be that he's innocent. That's what you should have said. Not untouchable. It may well be that he's innocent. That is the binary view on the law. Innocent or guilty. It blows my mind that our ancestors had a female holding the scales of justice while blindfolded. This image has not stood the test of time. Women should be disappointed in what they have become. So you got to say to yourself, well, you know what? It may well be that he's what? Untouchable? Blows my mind every single time listening to these feminists, man.
Let me bring some more in. I mean, look, I remember the very recent case of P. Diddy.
Yeah.
Okay? P. Diddy had an unbelievably huge number of incredibly serious charges. And we know how that played out in the end. This is why, as a journalist, it's not my position to be an activist who has a view about Andrew Tate either way. These are serious charges. People are making serious allegations. My view is the position to take is to just follow where the facts go. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, but a lot of people don't have that perspective. We always see the media and the people being judge, jury and executioner to people before they have been found guilty. And the issue is, and of today's dropping of the charges of the criminal case, is it's going to strengthen Tate's message that it is a witch hunt after him. The public the politicization of the justice system.
No, I agree. And by the way, Tessa, you shake your head.
Yeah, but you platformed the message.
No,
we
but
didn't need to hear his message if you hadn't platformed him.
I don't need to interview anybody. But he's the centre of a big breaking news story today. About him.
You felt it was your public duty to platform him.
I know, not at all. I think it's interesting to interview Andrew Tate on a day that the criminal charges from one of the two police forces get dropped. I do think that's interesting and significant.
But let's clarify why that is. Because
unbelievable, man. And for those of you that are watching, to think that, hey, these so-called rape charges that always hit men are all women just being victims? Listen to this case. I'm going to bring you MTR's channel because I think he highlighted it perfectly. And I really want to give him credit for breaking this story. And I basically want to highlight it because it is disgusting to see the mind of a woman in today's modern society who has it out for a man. I'm going to make him do most of the talking here, but if you guys haven't seen this, just listen to this story.
We're about to go over absolutely terrifying content. And it's not that we haven't gone over this content on this platform before. It's just in order to have this conversation as real as what we can, once we capture people on camera saying that, yeah, I have falsely accused somebody, or they are alluding to it within the confines of the content, it gives for greater discussion. But this content should be terrifying if you are a young man or an old man. It should be terrifying if you have sons, if you have an uncle, if you have a brother. Any man within your life, or if you are a man, should watch this video and take heed to the information we are about to present to you. Now, the person of interest in this current video is the lovely young lady over here in the pink top. Let me make this a little bit bigger just to make sure that we're having the same conversation. It's this lovely young lady over here in the pink top, and don't let the smile fool you because this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, this lovely young lady, she goes by the name Victoria Everest out here on these Instagram streets. And if you take a look at her profile, it's one of these health, wellness. I don't know if she's vegan. It doesn't really matter. But you see that she's accumulated over 750,000 followers through, fitness, wellness, health, exercise. You can actually see over here that she used to be of the Bigums, right? And then post updates in regards to the beach body that she has now attained. Nevertheless, this lovely young woman is going to be the highlight of this video here today. And I guess, let me not explain it. Let me go over to the savior, or the post of the savior that has given us this content, and it's by this brother right here. Let me go through his post right here just to make sure we're speaking the same language. His name is Gucci Walker. He said, A couple of years ago, I got told that a guy that I know was being falsely accused of R. He was on bail, and honestly, there was no way he would beat the case because the woman planned it very well. She invited him over. They had S, and then she went to her bathroom and called the police, accusing him of R. So he got arrested at the scene in her house. Whilst the evidence of his sperm was still inside of her, this guy was going to go to prison for such an evil plan. Not just one count of R, but 2 counts. He would have gotten 12 years minimum. When I heard it, I felt sick, and I had to try and help. So I call him the savior. I went to her gym, and I made friends with her and worked my charm. It didn't take long before she eventually started bragging to me about the way that she hurts men. I had my phone secretly filming the entire conversation, and the police dropped the R case against the guy. We live in an evil world, and men really need to be careful with some women. Now,
that sends chills down my spine. I do not want to be single in this era where men have to navigate the type of women that are out here today. Because this stuff never really happened in my days, man. Oh, gosh. Gentlemen, I just want to say, MTR, thank you so much for bringing this case out. I think every single Manosphere channel should broadcast these women when caught, so that they can be identified and shamed for their horrible behavior. There has to be a light shone on these type of women, because what happens when real women come forward? Imagine if my daughter got raped and no one believed her because of all of this crap, this false allegation. That would kill me. I want to highlight more who she is, because she needs to be called out, man.
the footage he uploaded to his Facebook account, and it barely has any views right now. We're going to go through the footage in order to hear from her words, her thoughts, her trauma that she's passing down to other people. And the thing
gut
is,
microbiome.
Shut up. When I take a look at her profile and I see the image that she projects, right? When I see the copyright. When I see the Instagram profile and she's got areolas showing, right? She's selling this degree of sexuality. This is why I stay so far away from these women, because when I see them do this, it comes from a place of inadequacy. It comes from a place of hurt. It comes from a place of being bitter, single, unhappy. Sometimes they're bitter baby mamas. No matter what it is that it comes from, I stay clear and far away, because I think that the thought of #BelieveAllWomen in the society that we currently live absolutely terrifies me.
It terrifies me too, brother. That scares the crap out of me, as it should for every single man out there. That's another reason why a lot of the men are staying away from these women. Gentlemen, protect yourselves at all times. This isn't a joke. Your life can be seriously ruined just because you're trying to get inside that little moist hole. Now, I'm going to fast forward to where this woman condemns herself.
Shouldn't go past 31 doing the toxic stuff, because it's too much energy investing out.
That's what the therapist was saying yesterday. It was like, is it not exhausting?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not though.
So you're gonna live. You've done for 5 years hurting men. You enjoy it, and you're gonna keep going. But the energy that you're putting into that, you could triple your income. You could be doing other things, you know what I mean? So that's one thing. Two, in all reality, you're killing yourself with a fake charge. Can I tell you where? You're going to have to put in energy to get a fake charge across. But if it doesn't go according to plan, it will bounce back on you. And it'll be, obviously, they will have medical.
I've done all this. There's evidence. I've been in my clothes. He banged me, babe. Like, we had sex, and he's denying that he was even there.
How can you do that if you got arrested in your house?
No, so one was for an occasion where he left.
Yeah.
The other time he was there, but he claimed that we didn't have sex, but there was evidence to say that we have.
Alright, cool. You can.
I don't care. I want to take him to the cleaners, babe.
Yeah, but this is what I thought about. This is what I was thinking. I thought about him.
Because I hate him because he's so much like me, and it annoys me.
But Victoria, listen to me carefully, yeah? Your skill is that you can detect a victim you want and break them. That's what you do. You enjoy doing that. It doesn't mean you've got a victim in broke.
No, it doesn't.
It just means
I've just got one over. That's all.
Yeah, but it means you got desperate that you weren't able to hurt him. You pulled a face. You know what I'm saying? So
that's still gonna hurt him. He hates that. And the thing is, he's gonna go out continuing to fuck up girls' lives. Yeah. With an assault charge and a rape charge, he'll think twice about what he does next time when he meets the next girl.
Yeah, fair
he'll
enough.
think
But
twice
it's
about
a fake rape charge. So what have you won from that though?
So what? The guy lies for a living. Let him have a taste of his own medicine. That's all. Let him continue lying for a living. That's what he does. He spins stories and sells dreams for a living. End of. So when a story spun on him, let him swallow that pill.
But I get your angle, but then you can't say you've won or you was able to.
It's not a game. I'm done. I've pulled back. I've done what I've done. I've played my move. I've moved on.
But you weren't able to hurt. The way you usually like to hurt men, you weren't able to hurt him.
Well, I did, because in the relationship, I continued to cheat on him. Remember, their realization.
Okay, so not only was she cheating on him in a relationship to continue on hurting him, but then also false allegations in order to try to ruin his life on the way out. Oh, this is a interesting type of a succubus and demon witch serpent woman. If it can happen at a level of a Johnny Depp with all of those cameras, all of those eyes, all of those public opinions and perceptions, if it can happen at a level of a Shannon Sharp where everybody can look at that situation and say, Uncle Shay Shay, you're stupid. You just got cleaned out of a professional jukester. Yeah, right. If it can happen at those levels, what makes y'all think that it doesn't happen at an average man's level? This is not a one-off. This is a pattern, and it absolutely needs to be addressed.
And here's the thing. Nothing happens to this girl. She gets to just walk away. What happened to this poor man who probably got locked up, probably lost his job, lost his reputation? Everything is then stripped away from him. Why? Because she needs to teach him a lesson. Woo, man. All of these so-called Instagram baddies are the worst of the worst. These are the same women who are trying to take down Andrew Tate. These are the same women who got Shannon Sharp. All of these so-called baddies on Instagram, gentlemen. You have to be careful of all of these women who constantly have their sexuality displayed online. They are not dealing with a full deck. They're not. Protect yourselves, gentlemen. Anyway, listen, I've already ran this one too long. Please, gentlemen, protect yourselves at all times. Protect. Wrap it up. Vet the woman properly. Don't freaking sleep with them. Don't freaking immediately rush to their house. My friends, listen. The older man can only warn you so much. I know the lure of that punani is... It's big, it's hard. Sometimes you might just have to just pay for it. Go get it from a professional. Protect yourself from these so-called ordinary women on the street, okay? So my friends, listen, I'm going to lock it off there. Please subscribe, like this video if you haven't already. And my friends, remember, whenever in doubt, always ask an older man. Let's have a discussion. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.